If your kitchen feels done but not elevated, I'm here to fix it. There's this big difference between, like, maybe you just recently had a kitchen remodel, or you just have a nice kitchen in general, then like actually getting it to work for you. There's a big difference between having it be pretty on the surface, but then actually having the pretty things function well for you. And so through this video, we're going to go through the foundational elements of creating the function and the beauty, styling principles on combining those things, and the mistakes to avoid so that you can have both a picture-worthy kitchen and also a highly functioning kitchen. So one thing I like to say is luxury is clarity, it's not clutter. So oftentimes what happens when we over decorate is we just end up having a home that looks very cluttered. And in the design world, we say we want your home to feel curated, not decorated. And so that means your pieces are intentional, and that's especially important in your kitchen. There are often times where you need the kitchen to feel like an extension of your living room, right? Like most of us have open concept homes now. While we are seeing a trend going back to more separated spaces, I think it's safe to say, like, generally speaking, open concept, people like to have people over and be able to cook and conversate, really have that like welcoming environment. But at the same time, that means your kitchen is highly exposed, right? So sometimes we end up just either, well, it's just a kitchen, it's just gonna look the way that it's gonna look and be messy, or we like over decorate it, and then now our kitchen is no longer functional because it actually does need to have countertop space so that you can chop, right? One thing that I like to do when I think about foundational elements of decorating your kitchen, an important thing to think about is your lighting. So often we don't think about having lamps and things like that in our kitchen space because we think of it more of like a work zone than like a living room. But now that our kitchens are wide open to our living rooms, we need to think more seriously about like what kind of mood is happening in our kitchen. And then even for ourselves, if we're cooking like later in the evening, we don't necessarily want all these bright overhead lights on, but we still need to see. So I've started putting, and this is a trend that's been happening for a few years now, but just putting small lamps into the kitchen. If I get the ability to design the kitchen from the beginning, we can add more sconces and, you know, lighting over island or peninsulas to help create more of a mood lighting in the kitchen and create more of a soft environment. And then putting everything on dimmers these days, like that's something I'm all for, so that we can create the level of brightness that we want to match the mood for the environment that we're creating, whether it's for a party, family gathering, but whatnot. The other thing that is really important is not to forget that your kitchen, you're still designing your space, you're still curating a feeling in your kitchen. And again, especially if it's a kitchen like mine where you walk in the front door and you see straight from the living room through the dining room into the kitchen, it has to flow, it has to be cohesive. So you don't want to forget to layer the textures the same way that you do in your living room. You want to carry that into your dining room. So think through, what are spaces in my kitchen that I can add an element, whether it's a rattan lamp. So then you're adding both your mood lighting and your texture in that one decor piece. Maybe you have some wall space that you can put some really pretty art on, or maybe it's something that's even more functional where, and I'll go into this a little bit more later, but you're adding in items on your countertop that will both be function and a texture layering decor, right? So think through that, think through the tones that are in your kitchen. You don't want to have your living room be like all neutrals and then you do some bright colors in your kitchen and then you have this open space. It's a little different if you have those spaces separated. You can have each room have a little bit more of its own personality. But if it's an open space, you want those warm colors or whatever your color palette is for your home to carry through from your living space into your kitchen. It should tell the same story. While you can have obviously different items in your living room versus what you have in your kitchen, your color palette should be very similar. And having warm tones in your kitchen helps create that environment of being welcomed and wanting to go congregate there. And instead of it being either cold, stark, or cluttered, that would push somebody out of the kitchen not make them want to congregate there. They would be uncomfortable while they're in that space. So you want to think that through while you're in your kitchen as well. What kind of stools or counter chairs do you have at your island or your peninsula? Are they comfortable? Are they a place where someone's going to want to come sit? Do they add another texture, or do you have like hard surface on hard surface? So to clarify, hard surfaces is like stone, wood. Now wood can add more texture than stone, but these are just like glass. These are hard surfaces. So if you have a lot of hard surfaces in your kitchen, you might want to think about having a fabric for your counter stools. A lot of people get afraid of bringing fabrics in dining rooms and kitchens, especially when we have families and younger children. But there's a great fabric these days called Krypton, or even like a umbrella fabric that's basically indestructible. So it does cost a little bit more to get those fabrics that are stain resistant, but it's so worth it to spend that little bit more to get something that's super durable and gonna give you the feeling that you want. Like, let your guests come sit at the counter and have them be comfortable for the whole hour that you're cooking, right? So those are different ways that we create a warm and inviting kitchen space that our family, our friends, everybody wants to come congregate around, and that you'll be happy in while you're cooking, even more than when you're having parties and whatnot, because you're in that space probably every day. It'll be more inviting for you to want to go in there and to cook instead of feeling overwhelmed by a cluttered kitchen. And so then the last element of doing the foundational pieces is just your proportion and visual balance. So for this, it's just a matter of, again, not over decorating. Make sure you have the counter space to work on. Make sure that you don't have every single inch of wall space covered with something. Make sure that if you're in the process of remodeling or designing a kitchen, that there's some symmetry and balance. And obviously, like, hiring a designer is great if you're going to do the construction part, because they just innately know how to do that. Sometimes it's like, well, maybe you don't have a perfectly symmetrical space, but you can hang a really large light fixture off to one side, and because your hood and your range is on the other side and you feel like that corner feels too heavy, you balance it by giving the other corner something heavy to help offset that. So then the next step is just your basic styling principles. We want functional styling in our kitchen. For the most part, everything should have a purpose, but also still be beautiful. So yes, I'm going to talk about getting the glass containers to put your rice and your oats and maybe flour, sugars, have nice olive oil and avocado oil or whatever oils you use, having like really easy to use but beautiful salt and pepper shakers or grinders, other things that can bring in pretty elements. In my kitchen, I think you can see it from here, I have copper bowls, I have gold strainers, and I put up a hanging bar so that they actually are visible in my kitchen. Now, to be 100% honest, the copper bowl I never use. I don't really know why I never use it. It's totally usable, I just don't. But those gold strainers we absolutely use, but they're still pretty and just adds another textural element, another layer of warmth and color, but it's very highly functional. And because it's hanging underneath our shelf, it leaves the drawer space for other items to be stored, which is great. And another good purpose of having decor pieces that are also functional, so that especially if you have limited storage space, you can really utilize the things that you need to store on your countertop in a way that also is decorative. The other thing that is a styling principle is balancing your negative space with your purposeful objects. Again, this goes back to the whole, do I have like all of my functional decor pieces on one side of my kitchen and then the other side of my kitchen is empty? Like, think through how you can have stations around your kitchen. And if you haven't watched some of my other kitchen videos, go back and scroll through those, because I talk a lot more about kitchen zones and different ways to create a kitchen that really flows well while you're cooking. But for this, we're talking more visual, we're talking more decorative and styling in your kitchen. So you want to make sure that you don't have a corner of your kitchen that's completely empty and then another corner of your kitchen that's doing all the heavy lifting. Like, all of your small appliances are in that one spot and all of your spices and stuff is in that one spot. We want to create zones throughout the kitchen so we can spread out the workload. It's also great if you have multiple people cooking in your kitchen at once, because you can have like a chop and a prep zone, and then you have your actual cooking zone. You maybe have like a baking zone, maybe you have like a coffee and drink area. So then your kitchen is doing equal duty throughout the kitchen, and each spot has its own purpose. So then you think through, okay, if this is my baking zone, then your decorative items are also going to be your functional items for your baking zone. If you're thinking through, okay, this is my prep zone, so like a great thing to showcase and use as art and decor on your prep zone would be some really beautiful cutting boards, right? Use your cutting boards, let them patina, let them have character to them, but then just layer them on top of your counter so that they're not having to be stored inside a cabinet and taking up storage, and then they're adding texture and depth and art to your countertops or to your kitchen. You can also hang chopping boards as another, cutting boards is another great way to style if you have an empty wall you don't know what to do with and you want it to function. Anything that you can hang that you also use is great. Just making sure, but then the other idea is to make sure that there's some space in between the zones. So you want to make sure you still have a clear countertop to chop on. You want to make sure you still have a clear island to roll dough on or to do whatever baking you love to do. You want to have also a clear island for people to sit and be comfortable sitting there while you're cooking if you're having guests over or your kids are maybe doing homework while you're cooking. Super important to think through styling in a way that also is ultra functional for your specific needs and however you live your life. I kind of talked about this already in the foundational elements, but again, for styling, you just want to make sure that you're layering texture. So you want to have linens, brass, or just think about it like metals, fabric, woven things, stone, and then have them be a variety of colors. I'm going to have another video coming out that I'm going to talk about some trends in the kitchen for 2026, but something that we are seeing, and a little sneak peek of that video, is we're a lot more in like the mid-tones for our color range. So where before we used to have a ton of contrast, like white and black was like huge for years, right? Now we're seeing a little bit less contrast in things, but you still need to create depth. So even if you're gonna stay in like a mid-range of your color tones, you wanna have a darker blue paired with a little bit of a lighter blue on the opposite ends of that mid-range. So the one darker one is just on the cusp of being dark, but it's still in the mid-range. And then the lighter one is just on the cusp of being light, but it's still in that mid-range. And then layering those tones is how you add the depth and how you get the interest when you have a bunch of mid-range colors. So think about that even with all of your materials. It doesn't just have to be like in paint colors. You think about like the stone you put in your kitchen, with the hardware that you put in your kitchen, with whatever cabinet material you're using, and then even the decor that you're bringing in. So maybe you went kind of like all one note in your actual hard finishes of your kitchen, and you're decorating and you're like, oh, I really need this to just feel more inviting. Think about how I can add a little bit more darker or lighter elements to create that depth and that interest. And you can do that with the lamp, with your glass or wood containers that you're going to be storing things in. You can do it with, you know, copper bowls or any element. Think through the things that you use functionally, and then find an aesthetic way to present those and have them as your decor as well. Okay, so the final chunk of this, decorating your kitchen and having it function while also being beautiful and that elevated kitchen that everybody wants to have, is mistakes to avoid. So again, please don't over decorate. Like I think one element, and I don't remember where I heard this from, but I know I didn't make this up, but like basically like you do all of your decorating and then just take one thing away when you're done. Like you probably have 1, 2, 3 more things than you actually need. So if you just like finish all your decorating and then take one thing away, most likely you won't over decorate. Also, just step back. Sometimes it's like the next day you want to look at it, have fresh eyes, and just be like, okay, like, is this busy? Like, what are my eyes drawing to and why? Is it a positive thing that my eye is drawing there, or is it because there's just too much going on in that section of my kitchen? Again, balance out, like have those functional decor pieces in the different zones of your kitchen, but make sure there's space in between each zone too, so that it's not just this like constant stream of stuff and then nothing really shines. Everything's just gonna feel like mess and clutter. Another mistake to avoid is like over matching everything. So you don't want to have all the same wood tones, all the same metal tones. Again, kind of going back to where I was talking about, like even if you like things in that mid range of color, add the light and the dark. Make sure that even if it's, you know, just in the decor pieces, but like if your kitchen is naturally dark, have your decor pieces be lighter so that you can create that interest. Make sure that if you have, you know, kind of warm kitchen cabinets, maybe you balance it with a little bit of a cooler hardware. And it doesn't need to be, you know, black, but maybe do nickel. I think it's really great that nickel's coming back. I really love a polished nickel. It's a much warmer version of like a chrome, but you still get that shine, which just adds, again, another layer of visual interest. So say you have an oak wood cabinet that's, you know, a little bit rich and warm, adding that polished nickel, it's gonna have that little hint of warm, but because it's a silver tone, will create that depth and that character. So think through those things as you're decorating, and make sure that you don't overmatch everything. Don't have all the same metals, don't have all the same wood tones. Layer the wood tones. Don't be afraid to have multiple different wood species and wood tones. Generally speaking, what you want is to go from light to dark in that same type of wood tone. So like I have a lot of oak, but I also have pine and knotty alder, but everything stems from like a brown stain. So I have a light floor, and then I go all the way to like a really dark walnut stain in my knotty alder, but they're not, it's like brown light to dark. So if you have more reddish woods in your home, just do the reddish tones light to dark in your wood, and that's how you keep it cohesive. Even if you have different species, there's ways to use stain to pull out different colors and achieve that look. And then also, yeah, just whatever decor pieces you bring in, don't be matchy-matchy. Don't be afraid to have nickel and brass in your hardware. Don't be afraid to have black and gold in your hardware. I usually say stick to two. Like you can totally have more if you have that eye naturally, but if you're afraid of how to do it right, just stick to two. Have your decor pieces and your lighting in brass, and all the hardware in your kitchen in a nickel, and maybe your faucets are in a nickel too. So then you're kind of having a variety of the tones, but instead of having to figure out how to do 3 and 4 different types of metals together, you at least have 2 that brings in the different visual elements. And then again, don't ignore the lighting. Like lighting is so crucial. I have been getting more and more into planning lamps like very early on in my design. So even in our kitchen, I have the little lamp in the corner over there, and I had that plug. I didn't know what lamp I was gonna buy yet, but what I did was I had the plug linked to a switch right outside our bedroom door. My husband wakes up very early, have a really low calm level of light as he's waking up, and then I have a decor piece in my kitchen that I love. So planning, if you can, for lamps very early on is a really smart thing to do. Lamps add the texture, the decor, but also give you the layering of different types of light that you really want to create a warm and inviting space. And then also, you know, it's not impossible to have an electrician come in and do that after the fact. If you're not in the planning process of remodeling or building new, you can have an electrician come in and let them know what you're trying to achieve, and you know, get quotes and see what you can do. Adding in like the pendant lighting, down lighting, sconces, lamps, as much different variety of lighting that you can. I obviously have overhead lighting on right now so that you can see me. I try to avoid it at all costs, especially towards the evening. It's like my least favorite type of lighting to have on in the house. I'd rather turn on all the lamps. Did have everything put on dimmers. That was really important to us. That was actually my husband's request when we were remodeling this house, and I think it's brilliant. And now I do it in all of my houses that I work on so that I can bring it down to the lowest level possible, especially like I said in the evenings when you want to start having a calm light. Think through lighting. Don't ignore it. Make sure it's planned for. Yeah, if you're gonna do a kitchen remodel anytime soon, make sure you save this video, like it, subscribe if you haven't already. I come out with new videos every week. And then check out my 2026 kitchen trend video that will be coming out next week. Comment about what you're struggling with in your home, and I would love to do a video for you. Or also you can look at my past videos. I have something for almost every space in the house if you're needing help with that. But again, if there's something you can't find, let me know. I'd love to make a video just for you. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week.